Slides for today. Let's see here. Get this back to the top. All right. So welcome. We're online March 25th to the Green Bay Power BI user group. Our agenda for today, we're going to be going over updates and news that are out there that we find interesting. This slide deck link is in the chat, so if you need to follow along or click any of the links, you should be able to bring up the slide deck from the link I put into the chat. We'll be going over upcoming events, things that are new in Power BI features, a lot of references to others who are talking about great material and videos. Then our speakers are actually some user shares from members that are in our Power BI, Green Bay Power BI community. Greg will be talking about Power BI Premium per user licensing. Jolene will be talking about COVID shutdowns, quality dashboard, and I'll be doing a share that's kind of introductory to help people understand the beginnings of all of this Power BI stuff, which is still out there, which is Power Pivot and Excel. Then we'll have an open group discussion to encourage some sharing of ideas and thoughts on the topics around keeping up with Power BI updates, how people share data sets, managing report requests in a small business. So encourage you to grab that list, start thinking about that. So when we get to the discussion point, you can unmute and contribute to the discussion we'll have in the user group. And then we'll follow up with QA and networking at the end for those who want to stick around and turn on the camera and say hi, since we can't be in person right now. All right, news and events. Let's see here. There is an April 6th Microsoft Business Applications launch event. And in the slide deck that you should be able to access, there's a link to register for that. The Business Applications launch event often covers topics that relate to things they're doing with Teams, Power Platform, and Power BI. They sneak those topics in there because Power BI will show up inside of a lot of what they're trying to do with Teams and enable small business. So it's a good event. Next is April 19th through the 24th. There is a Power BI Summit virtual conference. It's coming from actually Ara CAD, I think is how they pronounce their site. When you click through, it's a big site that has a lot of Power BI experience in the field. I see their name come up a lot, and I think it's going to be worth the registration fee. It's going to be focused on some important Power BI events, and it's all virtual, and the agenda's there to kind of click on. And when I click through and looked at it, there are a ton of sessions and deep events on different topics. You could pull out Power Query, you could do that kind of thing. So recommend taking a look at it. For new things, there is always new stuff, and we don't want to rehash it all here, take too much of your time. So really, take the slide deck we've provided and look at a couple of these update videos. They're great summary updates with some screenshots and actual click-through walkthroughs of all the new stuff that was put into February and March. Highlights included changes to the ribbon, some additions here and there. They're always adding new things, and having watched these videos a little faster speed is a great way to kind of just high level absorb the new stuff that's out there. Other recommended sites and links that are good for those of you who are seeing these regularly and subscribe to these people. In the upper left corner, I forget her name, Steve Erbach, when normally he does this presentation, he knows her name, got her down. But she's got some great stuff. It shows up as Kerbal when you look it up on YouTube. The one on the right, 5 ideas to take your reports to the next level. That was an excellent video, not too long, and gave some good insights that we'd recommend to the community as you get started. And on the bottom there, that's Avi Singh. He's well known. He's got the trademark yellow bow tie on all his events, and he's got a good selection of materials, as well as if you wanted to get into actually paid training with him. And so the 5 mistakes by business leaders is a nice overview of things to watch out for as you get into your Power BI development. So recommend all those. Find them in the slide deck. Locally, we also have some people that have shown up here as speakers, or we evangelize other user groups. In the upper left there, that is the Green Bay Brew Pub. That's the Milwaukee user group, which we may be doing joint events with in the future. That had a great recent video. And Craig Wagner, who has been a speaker for us before. He's down in Milwaukee, and he has Kratos BI channel with a lot of good material on it. His day job is Rockwell. So when I hear Rockwell, I always think of Craig. He's been great to come and present with us, and he has some great material. And then on the bottom there is the general Power BI user group that also has recordings made available. So check them out. For today, we have user shares from people that are in our local Green Bay Power BI user group. And the first up is Greg. I have the honor of introducing him. Help me welcome him up to talk about Power BI Premium per user licensing. You can take over the share whenever you want, Greg.
Sure. All right. Let me see. Oh, hang on. Are we sharing?
Coming through. Yes.
All right. So this is a continuation on a presentation I did back in 2019 when we used to be able to do this in person. Back then, so basically I created a report that refreshes, basically shows the latest 25 tubes that are melted in our production areas, and so we put a TV up there. Oh, sorry. So we put a TV in the base so that when supervisors walk by, they could tell if that the numbers that are being entered were within spec, and that we're not creating a tube that is probably going to be scrapped at some point due to imperfection. So what we did, I created this chart and it worked okay, but we are a Power BI professional group, team. We don't have premium, so the ability to update data was very difficult in real time. So being a web developer, I was able to create some scripts, and I'm going to show you so this is basically, we have a URL. I have an ASP.NET application here, and you'll see that 2.18.58 was the last time it was updated. I have some JavaScript that refreshes the screen, and it will refresh the data every 3 minutes. It's a hack. It wasn't ideal. Shortly you'll see it refresh. The whole screen kind of flickers and it refreshes and gives us what we're looking for. It did an okay job, but like I said, we use Power BI Professional, so we were just getting started with Power BI, so Premium wasn't an option at the time. Now back in November, they released the preview version of Power BI Premium per user, which they allowed for some trials, which were a free trial, which allows you to create Power BI Premium reports and workspaces without, and it's free right until next Friday, but then it goes from the professional license of $10 plus an additional $10 premium per user license. And there's our refresh that happened. So basically it allows for smaller businesses that can't afford the P1 premium licensing for their organization. Part of how that let's see here. So what we did, I'll go into the project here that I created that application with. So this is a combination. Our data model has both direct query and import. So there's only one table that we use for direct query. So basically all the data in the run sheets that are being pulled in the charts and the last refreshed are automated and basically refreshed every 120 seconds. And it's basically looking for changes in live changes to the database. Mm-hmm. and so it works. You know, it's pretty useful that way.
Yeah, when with Pro, you can't refresh every 2 minutes. So by having premium per user, you unlock the features of premium to basically refresh more often and direct query some of the data, which would be every time it refreshes.
Correct, and that's why I was doing the hack refresh every 3 minutes, which I'm going to show you the latest version. So this is using premium per user, which allows it, basically it will automatically update every 2 minutes. It looks like we just did a refresh. So within, you know, so yeah, basically it automates this. I wanted to show where did it go? Sorry about this. Nope. I don't want that one. I apologize. It's on our slide deck, Paul. It hit on me. So to enable this, you go to your admin portal and you have to adjust some of the settings in the premium per user setup, which is, you know, in preview mode currently. And so you can set your minimum refresh intervals. So basically, if I wanted my report to update every 3 minutes, I could, or sorry, every 30 seconds. I could set this down to 30 seconds in here, and it would update that often.
And that's set at each per user's configuration. Like you end up, that user can go in and say, I want my stuff refreshing every 30 seconds, whereas some people, their per user premium, they can go and set it something else.
I think it's per report.
Oh, per report. Okay.
So basically per you know, I publish this Power BI desktop file into a workspace, and so it should up. I'm in the wrong one. So I'm going to close that because yes, it is per work. Yep. I'm going to get it.
The question is, as the premium per user person has to be the report owner, then, and that's the case, right? For this premium per user to get that, unlock that ability to refresh so many times, it has to be, you know, published, created, and done by the person making the report, paying for the $20 a month license.
So the workspace, and so the person who publishes premium to the workspace, this report to the workspace needs premium access, the premium license. But if you want to access a report, you also need premium per user license. So
the person making the report publish it to their premium area and can set the refresh down to 30 seconds if they want. Other people they want to share with also need to pay $20 per month for premium per user in order to see that report.
Correct. So I'm going to show. This is not. So in the work, go ahead.
Are you paying $20 a month for all the eyes that are looking at these control charts?
No, at this point with premium per user, we are just pulling in the reports that we need premium, like the almost live data in. So we're only.
But for them to look at it, don't they need premium?
Yes. So this is only being done in each bay where the TVs are. We have a premium license for that. So here's the workspace settings. So you basically can set that workspace to premium per user, and then whatever storage format you want. and basically hit save, and that will allow the users to so basically you'll have a crown on that workspace, I believe it is. So you'll see this one here is the actual workspace. It is, if you see that, where'd it go? So we'll go back here where it shows it. You'll see this little diamond, and that means it contains premium per user content. So that will, if you want to access anything in that data or in that workspace, any data, any reports, you also need premium per user licensing.
Yep.
So that, sorry, I got a little confused on what I was showing there.
Unless you're displaying it on a TV like you're doing, correct?
Well, that TV has a premium per, that user has a premium per user.
Correct. It's that one user that needs the access to publish it,
Correct.
and then anyone seeing on a TV is obviously not interacting with the report.
Well,
So
in
you
order
don't
for that TV to display it, it needs to log in. Something needs to log into the Power BI service.
Correct. So you need at
that
least one
login
license
needs to
for
be
that.
covered by Power BI Premium per user license.
Yes.
Correct. Yes. So yeah, that's how that works.
Hey, Greg.
Yes.
Any limitations on publishing the Power BI Premium reports to Teams?
I was briefly looking at that. We don't do a lot with Teams, and these are strictly on TVs. Only a handful of TVs.
I can
Go
try
ahead.
and answer that based on research I've done. We have reports that go to Teams. The key here with premium per user is any user that is to look at that report must also be covered by a premium per user license. So somewhere along the way, there is a $20 for that user per month fee that must be being paid. Even if you take the report and put it to Teams, it won't show for anyone in that team unless the person in that team, it can find up the chain that that person is covered by a Power BI Premium per user $20 a month license.
Okay, so that answers my question. It'll still work. We just have to make sure we're properly licensed.
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you.
So with that, this Power BI Premium, when I originally started this, when the preview license was back in November, and I got a couple trials, but the trials ended recently. So if anyone is dealing with a trial ending, April 2nd, will be general availability. I guess that's next Friday, according to my Microsoft contact. So it will be available for use starting next Friday. So
nice. All right.
Anybody else have any other questions?
Going once.
So
going twice. There we go.
This is Josh. When you displayed it before, you used your ASP.NET. Now, when you use Power BI Premium, did you switch that out, or are you displaying still through your ASP.NET, just a different URL because it's in a different workspace?
Actually, what we did, we got rid of we still had it available, the ASP.NET, but right now what we do is we just post this, and we have an auto script on when the computer logs in to post this license, or sorry, this URL.
Sure.
You can pass in some parameters for full screen. We actually, this one doesn't have it, but you can pass in parameters for the location, which typically each bay will have the location passed in, so it's automated. So there are, yeah, it's strictly, we're not doing anything outside of Power BI service right now.
Okay.
Nice. All right. Any final questions? Going once, going twice. All right. Thanks, Greg. Good share. Appreciate it. Our next presenter, let me bring up the slide to give her a good introduction, is Jolene Dietrich, who is going to talk to us about the COVID shutdowns quality dashboard. Take it away. Share your screen whenever you want.
All right, let me share. All right, can you let me know when you can see my screen?
It is up.
Awesome. So for those of you that might have missed my introduction, my name is Jolene Dietrich. I'm the manager of analytics and warranty at Mercury Marine. We're headquartered in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. So this request came, I work within supplier quality and procurement. And first, when COVID was first getting a big thing, the request came that we needed to understand. So we have a global supply chain, and we needed to understand what suppliers were shutting down production that normally didn't shut down production, and what risk were they going to have to our production line. So at Mercury, we make boat engines. For those of you that don't know, 75% of our engines are purchase components. So in procurement, our goal is, even though we are 75% of the engine, we don't want to be the reason the line shut down. Obviously, that costs money. And at a time with COVID, when we were thinking what's going to happen to our business, we wanted to make sure we weren't on the end of the sentence of, well, we'd be running production if it wasn't for blank. So it started as, okay, supplier quality team, we want you to go to all of our China suppliers and figure out who's shutting down and for how long. Well, within a week, as you all I'm sure can remember, it went from just being in China to being a global pandemic. So it was, okay, now we need to not only look at our Chinese suppliers, but we need to look worldwide, all critical parts. So we classify all of our parts into production. And so we're looking at all Class A and Class B parts. So those are more of our internal engine and high dollar value parts. So it was, okay, we need to understand all critical parts, what's going on with our supply chain. So we integrated I used, well, I guess 3 Microsoft systems. My data is being stored in SharePoint lists. I created a Power App to get the data from the supplier quality engineers. And then I created a Power BI report that was presented, gosh, sometimes daily, typically weekly, to our executive staff. So this is the Power App I created. Our director asked our supplier quality engineers to send emails to all of their critical suppliers asking, how is their company dealing with COVID? How has it affected their company? If they have shut down, what is their plan at start of production to make sure they have 100% conforming product at restart? Then any other information really that we should know as a customer about their production processes. So in the app I created, this is where the SQEs, supplier quality engineers, could go in and identify a critical part that they were sending off to a supplier. So I can just put in any part number. We'll just do test description, test supplier name. We'll put in my name for SQE. And then, so when our plant manager was looking at this, he wanted to know, okay, what production line is this affecting? So these are our program names of our various production lines. So you could choose whatever production lines it was being sent to. And I'm not actually going to click OK because I live in the middle of nowhere and have really bad internet access, so it'll probably stop me from being able to present that. But so then after the SQE initially sent that email, they would come in here. Unfortunately, I have to hide our supplier names because it's confidential information. So in the production version, when the SQE or our director or somebody goes into the app, right here is listed all of our supplier names. So they could click on the supplier name, and then when they click on the supplier name, all of the critical parts for that supplier came up. And then when they clicked on the arrow, you could see what the supplier was, what the part was. So this is our cylinder block cover. This supplier was on a complete shutdown. We will have to inspect parts at Mercury, but it's a low risk level. And then just some information about, looks like this was a Chinese supplier, so they could put in more information about the supplier's shutdown. Then we had our co-op who would come in, same thing, this would be supplier name numbers. So let's just pick the same cylinder black cover. So our co-op could come in, and when he actually physically got the parts on the dock and had to do a visual inspection, he could come in, he could see who the SQE was to contact if he had questions, what kind of inspection was required, why the inspection was required, and then right here he could say, so here's his notes for this one: part check, dimensional, okay, but no serial manufacturing date number was found on the parts. He marked it as being a pass. And then if we needed to do like an SITR or some type of materials, a lot of our parts, we have to check materials for hardness or porosity, different parts using our CMM lab. They could actually attach those CAD views right in here so other people can go and view what the results were of that inspection. So this is what was used for the day-to-day, getting the data into the system. Now, if you were an executive, you mostly only cared about this Power BI dashboard. So again, it's after the fact. This is now complete, so it looks a little bit different than when we were working in it. But we sent out emails about 123 parts. And this was, on this graph, SQEs would select if the email was sent, if they heard back from the supplier, but they need more information, if they're still waiting to hear back from the supplier, or as you see, 100% now are closed because we received sufficient information. Out of the 123 parts, 29 of them needed to be inspected at Mercury. So what this means is maybe the supplier couldn't inspect at their end of line. Maybe it's a supplier that we just kind of have a rocky relationship with. So yeah, they're inspecting at the end of their line, but we want to do our own inspection when it gets to Mercury as well. So you can look at what needed to be inspected, and then they assigned a risk. Is it high, medium, or low risk? So if we were then looking at our high risk, all of these parts are from 3 different suppliers, but these were all high risk. They had complete shutdown of their factory, and we needed to inspect them at Mercury. The next one kind of showed where we were at with inspections. So as we went through, parts not yet inspected obviously went down, as parts inspected went up. And then this pie graph showed what failed or passed inspection. So if something failed inspection, you could click on that part of the graph, and then down here this table would update, and you could see the inspection notes that our co-op put in about why it failed inspection. And then a big one that helped our co-op understand when parts are going to be delivered. So anybody who works in supply chain at that time knew the whole global supply chain was just a complete mess. Things, I mean, boats were shut down in the ocean and like not being able to get into ports. So this helped our co-op know when parts were going to be delivered to Mercury that were of the suspect's date codes. So when COVID happened, we obviously had a lot of parts that were already on the water. We didn't need to inspect those that were on the water before their factory shut down. We needed to shut down. We needed to inspect that first batch of parts after production got back up and running again. So this helped him. In the future, it was a different color, so he could click on it. So if this was before November, he could see, okay, he was looking for our bedrock cylinder head assembly. It would have, here would have said the supplier's name. So from X supplier, and he knew when to expect it to be on the dock, so he could get down there right when it was received in. We have a receive and inspection flag on it, which means it can't go to production until that flag's turned off, and he could get to it right away. Fast, but are there any questions or anything of what I showed?
This was Power BI reporting that's pulling all its data from SharePoint lists, and the SharePoint lists are all being populated by a Power app. So it's a great showcase of the Power Platform going into Power BI, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, absolutely. One thing that I have a lot more experience in Power Apps since this. I had all the SQEs freehanding who the supplier name and number was, where now we have that data in a Power BI data flow automatically coming in from Oracle. So now all of my apps have drop-down lists where they can start typing the supplier name to keep it regular every single time, not having to do any fuzzy logic on that.
Sure.
So, and then it also pulls in who the SQE and the buyer and the commodity manager is right when you click the supplier name, so people don't have to type in their own name or select some of that stuff.
Sure.
Mhm.
And is your audiences that are using Power BI and the Power Platform, are they licensed for premium? Are you using Pro?
Nope, just Pro. So we do kind of the same of what Greg was talking about. We have some premium users. So that really comes into when we want to share apps and some Power BI reports outside of our, I work at Mercury, we're owned by Brunswick, so we want to share outside of our Brunswick organization, but it's on a per user basis. So we're not all premium members.
Okay. And then the Power Apps also require licensing per user or by app to have them and used by other people. Yes?
Yep. So we have a enterprise license. So everybody who works at Brunswick has a pro license already. I guess it was just cheaper for us to do that than
Sure.
the individual license. So thankfully we don't have to worry too much about that.
Sure. Nice. Any
Yeah,
other questions?
I will say one thing that I've learned since then and most recently is people who are creating a lot of apps for their department and you have to deal with turnover. I recently had our IT department do an Azure security group. So they did it for everybody that reports to my VP. And then I just sent out an email to all of our directors saying, hey, when you onboard somebody new, go into Access Now and make sure that they request access to this Azure security group. So now we don't have to go into every workspace and Power BI report and app and add an individual when they come onto our team. They just get added to that group and then now they have access to everything. So that for me as a developer has been game changer. So it's not constantly, hey, we have this new co-op or this new employee. Can you add them to the 50 dashboards and apps and workspaces that we have? It's been really big for us. I like it.
Nice. Any other questions on this? Going once, going twice. All right. Thank you so much for that. That was an excellent showcase. Appreciate it. All right. The next piece, let me share my screen, is me. Let's see. So I'll be going over the foundation of Power BI, some might say Power Pivot, which is part of Excel. So this is kind of an introductory type of presentation for those that haven't quite found that area of Excel yet. So what I'm going to be going over, just to give you a high level, is kind of a live demo of working with Power Pivot aspects of Excel. We're going to be talking a bit about Power Query and how it imports into the Power Pivot model. We're going to be then I'll show how the Power Pivot model is where you form your relationships. You can do data formatting, and you really have the power of having a data model inside Excel, like we get used to working with in Power BI, and then creating the pivot table and charts from that model. So this is a great gateway for those that think they're super Excel experts to see what's here, and then they can get ready for Power BI. So what I'm going to do is open up Excel, bring that over here. Inside Excel, for those who don't know, the data elements, the Power Pivot pieces exist in Excel underneath the data menu. And in here is where we're going to first talk about bringing data in with Power Query and then looking at it in the Power Pivot data model. So like Power BI, the data can be gotten with this Get Data button, and lots of the same sources exist because there's a lot of crossover from Power BI. This was the granddaddy of it. So you can get data from files, workbooks, databases, and this is expanding. You can get things from Power BI now. If there's data available up in datasets, you can get it back down into Excel to work with. So that kind of interface works as you might expect. We're going here quick because this is just a 10-15 minute overview, but you get the idea that you can pick your sources, find your Excel files, and when you select to bring them in, it uses Power Query, which is the tool that really technically brings it in. So let me open up my Power Query that I had open here before. All right. For example, if I told it to go to another Excel workbook and bring it in, it loads it. I have the option of bringing it over into this Power Query Editor piece. It opens up another window. In the Power Query Editor, for those that are used to Power BI, it's very similar. The queries are the connections back to workbooks, databases, and you can bring multiple of them in from many different places. The middle and here, when you click through, shows the actual data, rows and columns of stuff you've brought in. In this case, I brought in a workbook that has these rows and columns, and I connected to a database that has this table with rows and columns. Over on the right side, you can do even more advanced things. You can work and change the data. You can split it up, change it from date to text, and there's a lot of different things, and those steps are all kept track of here. That we're not going to get too much into detail for, because really the power comes from this, just brings it in. Now we bring it back into the workbook. So when we do that, we close, it loads it, it puts it in a data model that's right inside of Excel. This data model is accessible here under Manage Data Model. It brings up, now we're in Power Pivot. So this area is where we are now working with the model that it is imported with Power Query. And I like to look at it with this diagram view so that people get a sense of that. Those are the two data sources that I brought in. One was an Excel workbook and another one was from a database. And in Power Pivot, this view with the diagram, I now can do things like say, okay, yes, this data relates. In this case, this table has a date that relates to this date table. I can form those relationships. I can switch back and forth to a data view to confirm the data's in there. There's both of my tables on the bottom. I have other things I can do in here to create measures. So right here, this is in a data model. Now I'm counting, or I'm summarizing, or I'm averaging some of the data in here. This is a formula that is now counting total rows, and then I can make as many measures as I could fit down in here in this section. This is the model. So I'd like to talk about that. This is very much like a Power BI model. In fact, underneath the hood, there's some obvious similarities. You could add in more and more tables, relate them, figure all that kind of stuff out. And then when you're ready to start doing actual charting and pivot tables, you are up here can create a pivot table, and it will bring up a screen, create it in a new worksheet. And now your data from your data model, I'm going to bring up, make certain I'm looking at the field list. There we go. Is going to go into this pivot table. So there's my tables of information, and I had made a measure that counted total rows. If I bring that over into my pivot table, 850 rows. If I don't want to break that down by maybe this status field, and working with a data model, and it's really quick in memory, just like Power BI, and I'm pivoting however I want. And now Excel is taking over its functionality to do pivot tables and charts, and I can do an Excel-based pivot chart off this. These are great for those that love Excel charts. I'm spoiled by Power BI now. This is too limited for me. These are basic, but though you can do plenty of standard charts right from Excel against your pivot tables. But for those of you who are ready to graduate beyond, try out Power BI, because you can do even more interactive and great visuals. This is where Excel starts petering out and Power BI takes over with great visuals. So that's a quick high-level understanding of Power Pivot's still out there. It's in Excel, and it's a great gateway to starting to understand how you can work with your data and think in terms of this exact set of steps is what you'll do with your work with Power BI. Any questions on this? Feel free to unmute or type them in. I think Nicole will watch for me if anybody's typing one. Going once. Going twice. All right. Let's see. I shouldn't have taken off the presentation. The next piece then.
Paul, we do have a question.
Oh, we do. Go ahead.
Do you know if Power View will be supported in the future?
I do not have any official knowledge. I'm not a Microsoft person, but I can say, since I pay attention to all of the events that are happening, and I'm really into Power BI and where the Microsoft is taking it, I would expect Microsoft to peter out any of that support within Excel. There have been signs like Power Pivot exists within Excel, but it is months behind some of the new features that have been added to Power BI in terms of data model, what it can do, expansion of things that people love in Power BI, like looking more like analysis services with XMLA endpoints and who knows all the other cool stuff. None of that's made it back into Power Pivot. I think that just speaks volumes for this is do not expect Microsoft to put attention back into some of the stuff that's inside Excel. They will try and marry the universes. You can see in signs of newest versions of Excel things that allow you to talk to Power BI data sets, but I think we should all expect that the idea of visuals inside Excel and data models inside Excel to die off. They're really going to say Excel can look at stuff, but all the visuals and the data models will be out in Power BI. It's my opinion. All right. Any other questions came through? All right. Let me go back to the next section of our agenda is to talk about open kind of group discussions. Let me get this back. Oh, wrong one. Gotta share the right screen. Sorry, guys. Teams gets a little slow on me. All right. So next piece is our group discussion type options. This is where we're all kind of working in this space. Some of them have more expertise than others, but this is an opportunity to unmute and discuss and ping our fellow experts in this space on some of these topics. So some of the floor discussion. We'll start with the idea of keeping up with Power BI updates versus our day job responsibilities. I think I know where this question comes from. Greg, did you you want to kick us off since you had kind of proposed that?
Yeah, I was just kind of curious on what other members are doing. You know, Power BI does their monthly updates to the desktops, you know, the service, that, you know, every different aspect of Power BI. And, you know, as soon as I feel like I'm getting good at it, you know, Power BI has made a bunch of changes to make either things easier or different, more efficient. And, you know, we all have day jobs as well to get things out. People don't want us just to be experts at Power BI. They want us to be able to do something for them. So that's kind of, you know, I try to watch, you know, the monthly video, but, you know, when I first started, I was watching it every month. Now I try to watch 5 to 10 minutes of it every third month. You know, it's I just don't find the time for it as much as I did. I guess what are other people's...
Anybody else out there care to speak up, feel that way? Any coping mechanisms?
Sure.
Well,
this is
we
Josh.
do. Oh, go ahead.
Go
I was going
Walla.
to say we do ours quarterly, so we save up our upgrades, and we don't let them automatically roll out to the developers or end users, and so every third month we kind of do a catch up. And I'm with you. I used to watch all the videos from start to finish. Now I usually go to the blog updates and just watch the pieces of the ones that look interesting or might be helpful for something I'm struggling with. So
that's good. Jolene raised her hand.
Yeah, I agree. So first, I also don't watch the videos anymore. I just read the blog, or I'll watch like the intro to the video and be like, okay, is there anything that pertains to me? But one thing that's really helped us at Mercury, and I get we're a bigger company too, but we started a Teams group that's just for Power BI updates. So we do have somebody in IT who will post the video every month, but then people will say, oh, hey, this has helped me, or this is some kind of no again stuff that is actually a new visual that's going to help me kind of weed out what might not be helpful and what is helpful as well.
Sure, having a team and having a community. Like anyone else?
Yeah, this is Josh. I kind of reiterate what both of them said. I mean, from my perspective, in the consulting world, it's a lot harder even to keep up because now you're doing it in multiple different customers' environments as well. So as a team at Heartland, we share things that we find valuable out of the monthly updates for everyone that's on our BI team here. But for me, it's been mostly, what am I struggling with in terms of delivering visuals or calculations or whatever it may be, and has any of the blogs addressed that? As soon as I find something related to that, then I start reading through the blog, but otherwise it's more trying to keep up with it is just nearly impossible on a monthly basis, especially if some of the features aren't stuff that I think are going to benefit the customer right away. It's finding the things that they're looking for and that we've been stumped on, and really talking with the team on how we roll those out.
Good, thanks.
Very cool.
Anyone else have a comment, thought? I was gonna say,
Paul?
Larry got a hand up.
Yeah, I also appreciate the Guy in a Cube videos on YouTube. That usually, if it's a really important update, it'll come through those. And we also use a team site where we'll share if interesting blogs or videos come through that we want to make aware within our teams.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Great.
You got something, Nicole?
Yeah, I've worked with several clients, and back to what somebody else was saying, a center of excellence within a company, sharing information, people sharing what they've learned, what they've heard, things that they have challenges with. I think that's been beneficial. Also, we've dedicated a product owner, and that product owner pays closer attention to following the changes and testing the changes, and then sharing them with the group of users.
Yeah. Shelley?
So this is somewhat related to the updates, but also people, you get stuck or you're trying to figure something out. So as Paul mentioned, we're lucky to have Chris Wagner at Rockwell, and Chris is a very much of a promoter of Power BI, and I'm not thinking of the right word right now that I want, but anyway, so we have a couple things set up at Rockwell. One is a Power BI user group of our own, and those meetings are monthly, just for an hour. They used to be really long, like 2 hours, and I just got to the point where I couldn't take all that time to go to that. But one thing, so that kind of, he'll have guest speakers or they'll talk about new updates. But something else I think is unique about us and that has helped is 1 day a week we have what's called Power Hours, and anyone can come on that call and ask questions about something they're stuck on or how to do. And generally what Chris starts that one off with is giving updates on, either how we have things set up at Rockwell and to watch out for, or if you're having a gateway issue or something like that. But he'll also talk about, once in a while, if there's like a really nice new feature, he'll bring it up there, so that's like a weekly thing and we don't have to wait for a month, once a month. And it's good because if people are stuck on things or they're new to Power BI, they can come on there and ask any questions they want. It's a little, nerve-wracking because we might have, 100 or 150 people on, so you might be a little nervous to ask a question, but he tries to make it as unassuming and, not intimidating as possible.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Chris
Same
was
here. We have
always good
monthly
for that.
ones. Yeah. I will say that the idea that a person in a IT or technical role can stay abreast of everything is impossible, and will get, if it's not impossible now, it's going to get impossible. So a lot of my universe with the teams and people once a month or once a week, it's also getting people comfortable with the idea in this community that they don't wait for the technical guy to know all the new stuff and how it works. It's coming too fast. There's too many additions. I have no shame anymore, or feel no guilt when someone comes to me in my internal communities and says, "Oh, what's this new thing and how does it work?" And I say, "No idea. Go look it up on a video." it's giving people the idea that they can get their information from other sources than some sort of bottleneck internally. All right. Any other thoughts, questions?
Yeah. I think we do it every other week. Power Hour is just, there's only a handful of report writers in our organization. And they're basically all waiting for data sets from me. So that will be in our next conversation. But but yeah, that seems to be very helpful as well. And it's go for it.
Yeah. All right. Next topic, if we're ready. How have people been sharing data sets and data flows with each other? I'm going to leave that open for someone who has maybe a good share on that to kick off the discussion of how they've been sharing data sets and data flows. Anyone brave enough to unmute and give us a story?
I guess I can go ahead, Shelley.
Sorry, I just thought if nobody says anything, I'll say something. So I'm in the services division at Rockwell, and we do repairs, we do field service, send field service engineers out to help customers, and we have technical support. Those are the three big chunks of the services division. And we have certain data sets then that a lot of people want and need access to for doing analysis and tracking things within their business. So those primary data sets, for example, contracts or repair orders, service confirmations, things like that, we have them in a Cloudera Hadoop environment, and it's extremely painful trying to work with Power BI and the Impala connector. And I have set up a bunch of data flows for those main, higher priority data sets. And I myself love it because when I'm building a report or a tool, I like, having new data because I'm trying to check things. And some of those data sets, I actually timed it and tested it, and it might have taken 25 minutes to refresh one of those data sets over Impala into my desktop. And that same data set through a data flow refreshes in 2 minutes. So I love that. And the data flow, the way I have them set up is I actually, renamed all the fields nicely. I don't know about other companies, but our data lake fields are all like abbreviated and ugly looking. And so I've spent time, I kind of have a number of steps I go through for each data flow in terms of formatting text a certain way, naming fields, and following those kind of conventions over the same data, over all the different data sets, following those same conventions. And just gradually, we've kind of been giving people access to those, and they can do things now. Like one of our quality guys, he's just going to town because I gave him access to the data flows. And there are we have different workspaces set up. So like data flows for everyone is a workspace I can give anyone access to. It's got just like it's got a calendar in with all the fiscal months and years and everything. And then material master, that sort of thing. That doesn't matter who looks at it. And then there's another workspace for data sets that are a little more, there are contracts and repair orders, and maybe we don't want to give those to everybody. And then we have another workspace that's more secure. It's only for specific people and so on. So
nice.
So you share specific data sets with certain people then?
Yeah, so these are just data flows, so it's not built into a model yet. We do have one model that we have that's kind of a, real popular one we can do a lot of things with that we are sharing with some people. But just even to give people the data flow, because we found we're the bottleneck. We have less than 10 people on our team, and we're supporting a $700 million business. And we have 3 people who build Power BI reports. And so we were the bottleneck. So we're trying to figure out how to enable people and promote subject matter experts within other areas of our business that can learn how to do Power BI and enable them to make some of their own tools so that everybody's not trying to come to us.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other
Yeah, we have
shares? Oh, go ahead, Greg.
So yeah, we have a similar, well, so I am the bottleneck for getting our data sets out there.
Yeah.
I basically, create the data sets, but, we have like one Power BI power user, we'll call them, somebody who can create reports at each of the divisions. We have 5 divisions throughout Metaltech. And so, we can create 4 of the divisions use the same ERP system, but, and I can use row level security, but do we need to, we're at the beginning of phases and just trying to see, do we create a separate data set for each division out of a main, a primary data set? And we're trying to figure that out at this point. And
I will say that we also take heavy use of the platform's use of certified and promoted tagging of data sets, flows, and reports to try to bring forth the idea that there's going to be more and more outside of IT development of reporting and data availability to other people, and narrow down certified as something that is more important, more vetted, more trusted, more reliable for executives, and expect that we have not as many certified and maybe more promoted, and then a wide bunch that people haven't even told anybody about that they're playing with in that space, because we don't think that the future is going to all reporting comes from a very tiny team that's going to get bottlenecked with all these requests. So
yeah, we're similar to that. We make a good use of the promoted and certified, where pretty much anyone can promote, but only Kelly and I can certify them. And it's more than just data. It's also like efficiency of their Power BI model and best practices and stuff like that. So we're fairly stringent as to what gets certified, because we want to make sure not only is it accurate, but that it performs correctly. Things like that. Otherwise, the way we manage our data flows is similar to the first person that spoke, basically by workspace. So most of the data flows we create, but there's a few that the business has created, and then people can use them in their data sets.
Yeah, nice. Any other thoughts? All right. No raised hands? I think we're good. All right. The next one was managing report requests in the small business. How do you deal with the fact that we're going to get so many more report requests than we really can staff out? What have been some pain points and solutions or coping mechanisms? Anyone want to kick us off? Raise hand or be the first on mute. No one?
I guess
brave enough for this one? Go ahead, Greg.
I guess I can kind of explain where I'm coming from for this. Being, again, a smaller team, Power BI has taken off here. So, we get, people really like it and they see the value and the power in it. But of course, me personally, I get a lot of requests, and, I'm never going to keep up with it until I get others creating these requests. But we don't want to create there's been discussion of a Power BI report committee type thing, but that kind of takes away from the team, like our ability to do what we feel is necessary. So it's a little confusing, like when you get 30 requests and you only have a couple people. Yep. How do you go about deciding what's most important?
Anyone have a thought to share before me? I thought my thoughts on this is, as we've grown in the past 2.5, 3 years, there's a 3-person team for all of this at Pro Impact. One of the things that I think has helped us is thinking in terms of being real transparent about how many requests we're getting and where they might fall. Because the simple truth of the matter is, it can't be first come, first serve. Someone comes walking in and says, I want some kind of report, doesn't mean that the executive who comes in later is going to wait while we spend a week figuring out that report. So we created a layered incoming request system to try and keep that very transparent. If we have requests that go on the list, and if we have some kind of framework that important ones are related to actual capital projects that have been vetted and go through a big process. With IT, they're at the top. If they're in the middle, then they may not have a big project behind them, but they're of interest to an executive or someone who has some pull to be able to say they'd like that. And then there's the bottom of the list, and being real clear that bottom of the list stuff may not get done for months. And even if we said we'll try and get it in the next month, it may get pushed 2-3 months. And then to buck up it on the other end, comes that whole internal community and encouraging self-service. Being able to have the avenue to say, listen, this stuff we all recognize, the stuff on the bottom probably not going to get done, but you have the power to start thinking about self-service. We have guidelines and we will walk with you. We aren't going to do it, but we have resources available, and that's opened up the opportunity. Pain is the mother of invention, or some saying like that. If there's a point at which you're real clear about we're not going to do that, or based on see how the list is arranged, that stuff's at the bottom. We won't explicitly say we're not going to do it, but you can infer that that's not likely to get done. That will drive the pain point home. Help the self-service idea is where we've found some value in that. There's too many cases of places I've worked where it's like, well, we have a request process and it gets on the list, and then we don't tell them it'll never get done. It just sits out there until the backlog's full of 10,000 things no one's doing. So,
Sure.
Josh.
Yeah, so outside of the self-service model, which I think is great, but it also takes a while to get there and getting your users used to doing it that way. The other thing, I think, thinking about it in terms of if you're using data sets and data flows and have common data sets that you use between reports, understanding the requests that are coming in, do you already have that data pre-prepped in a data set or in a data flow? Because that report's then going to take less time to deliver versus starting from scratch to bring all the data together, get in a data flow data set, then build the report. You might be able to cherry pick some of those small, maybe not smaller requests, but smaller victories because they're already pre-prepped for you.
Yeah, that's good. Shelley?
Yeah, that's a good point, Josh. I agree with what you guys are saying, and I think, Paul, when you mentioned the transparency, so we have a big long list, and what we've been trying to do, there are certain leaders within our part of the business that we review these priorities with, and they kind of all agree on what's the most important. And so then those are the big projects that we work on. But another thing that we've been trying to do that seems to help a lot is, people will throw requests out there. It's real easy to say, hey, I want this. But what we've found is that a couple things happen. One is they think it's really simple and they don't understand why we're not doing it. But if you put back on them, hey, you have to write user stories and tell us exactly what you want. First of all, if they won't take the time, we have a template for filling out the user stories and putting more information in. That gives us a better idea of what it's going to take. And to Josh's point, whether it's something that's like low-hanging fruit that we could do quickly and it adds value, that maybe we could just do it in our support time, or if it's going to take a lot longer time to do. But what we've found is that if people won't even take the time to fill out the user story template, then that weeds out the ones that really aren't that important to begin with.
Nice.
So
I think in words like lead qualification. Like every one of these could be a lead, and then there's some qualifying process to make it a real thing that we could add value to the business, or is it just somebody's pipe dream?
yeah. Yeah, and then when we are working on projects, we weren't very good at this, and we're trying to get better, is to continue reviewing the projects with them and have them more engaged in defining the requirements and helping on those actual decisions. And then they realize, oh, this isn't so easy. Where are you going to get that data? Or how are we going to do this when this data says this and that says that? And so that tempers their understanding a little bit, and because they know how difficult it is, and not just going, why aren't you guys doing this? What's taking so long?
Good. Any other thoughts, shares, coping mechanisms someone wants to tell us about? None? All right. Good. Thanks for kicking that around with us. The last piece was to put out in front of you as a group. Let us know, put right into the chat your email right now, and I'll keep that chat and get that list going. Who is interested in doing what we saw today, those user shares, or maybe an expanded presentation, given they've got some experiences that could be of help to the user group? Who is able to be with us, Greg, Nicole, Steve Verbach, and I, to help keep the group promoted and get the word out of where it is and organize the team's event link like this so that we can have a virtual spot to meet? Put your email in the chat right now so we can put you on the short list of people that can keep in mind for either presenting or helping us admin the group. Right? Appreciate it. As you can look forward to the next events, we do these every other month. We're planning the next one will be May, and we've found a lot of great content, and we're connecting with other user groups. So we'll see where the next event falls, and we'll make sure it's on the community site and keep everybody engaged on what will be the most interesting presentations coming up. So we're always open to that feedback. Excellent. Now, the last piece of this is the Q&A and kind of networking area. So this is the chance, if you're sticking around here for the next 15 minutes to half an hour, it's because you're going to unmute, turn on the webcam, and say hi. We got to simulate our in-person events where we get to say hi to folks. We don't get that anymore. Maybe later in the year we'll get back in person, but for today, if you're sticking around, it's because you're going to turn your webcam on and say hi to us. Otherwise, say your goodbyes in the chat, and we'll see you next time.
You really want to scare everyone off, don't you?
Come on. If this was in person, we'd see the same face. It's not that big a deal. It's okay. Come on. There we go.
Turn my hand off.
Awesome. Nice. Yeah, we've a similar type of events with Fox Valley Data and Analytics and some other ones, and getting that kind of chance to see folks, exchange just the pleasantries that come with networking in-person events is being simulated here. So appreciate it. All right, I only see 3 people on my screen. Dustin, Scott, Holly. Yep, they're dropping off. Jordan.
Yeah. Paul's always good at
All right. Oh. Now we got about the right amount of people. Hopefully everybody has been healthy and safe during these times. And was anyone brand new to the user group today? Holly? You have any feedback for us on how to make it more effective and keep you coming?
I thought it was a good range of presentations. There was a variety in topics, and I felt like that was probably useful to a whole spectrum of abilities.
Good, great, thanks. Our goal is to kind of keep that interest in those that are either starting Power BI or maybe need some advanced stuff, and Take advantage of the fact that we can get anybody from anywhere in the country now being virtual. But it is, I think in the future, there's value with that Green Bay locality if we ever get back in person. So whatever helps us keep people coming is good to know. So some of you are brave enough to stick around. You might be putting your email in there as people that could present or user share.
And we are doing a leadership group next meeting next Thursday over lunch. If anybody is interested in helping us move this along.
Mm-hmm.
What time?
I think noon. Is that what Nicole said it?
Yep, checking the calendar here. I believe it's at noon Friday. Oh, no, wait, noon.
Thursday.
Thursday. We're the 1st.
Oh, yeah.
April 1st.
April Fool's Day.
April Fool's Day.
I'd be interested.
Okay.
Josh.
Yep.
Josh, all right. Yeah.
You capturing that for Nicole, Greg?
Yep, I'm going to try to get you in there, Josh, as a share for in the meeting. Where is you put your email address in here?
Yep.
There
Dustin
we go.
put his in there. Excellent.
Have we done a presentation on data flows at all in this group?
I think we had one, but a while ago. We'd be up for another one.
It's almost a year, probably.
Yeah, I think it might be beneficial after talking about it a bunch today for maybe some of the people that were either new and don't know what it does, or maybe haven't used it in a while because they were only a pro user and couldn't do it at a certain time.
Yeah, and things have changed every other month on data flows.
Right.
There was actually an article I was pulling up to kind of, I don't know if anyone has seen it, called Deep Thoughts on Data Flows from a guy who does some good blogging in the space of Power BI, and put it in the chat. And it was a great recap video interview where he's, pointing out that as data flows keep maturing and changing, they are becoming an architectural thing that could be thought of as that whole layer that we might have used to have been our data warehouse or our database full of tables. We can have data flows on that layer, and it becomes an architectural study. So that was interesting.
Yeah, I've been going down the data set mindset, and I'd like to see where data flows come in, and because I know there were some limitations, but it's been a year and a half or so since I've looked at them. So
yeah. A couple of things that will still trip you up, I think, is one of the things that kept us out of them a year ago was you really couldn't go across workspaces without premium. So maybe you'd be doing data flows, you'd want to break them out into different workspaces. These are available to everybody, these are not. You can't even join them, merge them together unless you've got premium. So there still might be aspects where premium is going to be their go forward way. Premium per user is great, everybody kind of loves that, but you can tell that they'd really love to get people getting true premium everywhere.
Yeah, and we actually are lucky enough. I think our next fiscal year we got it in the budget, so we will probably we're going to do a couple months of premium per user at the pay level, and then hopefully we can migrate into premium.
Yeah.
Does that limitation still exist in premium per user?
Haven't tried it.
I'm assuming it's similar. You have to have the data flow, or you have to have, if you publish it as premium per user, you probably need premium per user to access anything.
The question would be if you had two workspaces and each was premium per user and
you combine them?
Marked as premium, would you be able to do a workflow across joining them? Or is it because they're now in separate capacities, it blows up on you?
Because I know with the whole composite model piece coming out more and more, and they expand upon that, I wonder if that's where they're trying to get with that as well, to bring that in there. But the idea of bringing multiple data sets and analysis services and other things together is very exciting to be able to do that. So you're not limited to just publishing a data set and not being able to use it, or having something really large.
Yeah. I remember when they announced that before Christmas, and I was getting ready to go on holidays, and I'm like, this is the holy grail. Plus, I don't trust it because every other time I've tried to join two cubes essentially together, two OLAP cubes, the whole thing, the performance goes to the floor. You can't join cubes. How is this supposed to work? So I'm very intrigued.
I have an actual development question. So I've been doing and helping our team with measures a bunch on here, and the common thing, which even showed up in today's presentation, is when you have a measure and you select something, it shows blank. There's several different things floating around out there on the internet as to ways to solve it. I was just wondering what you guys have found is the best solution, because obviously if you're adding a +0 at the end of it, which is a common one people suggest, isn't always the best performance depending on your data.
Yep. I have used, I think the techniques, it doesn't come up a ton that I like have a standard that I do on all measures now, but it's the whole, if is blank type of evaluation seems to be much quicker, and it's built more readily into DAX. It just makes the DAX formulas more complicated to look at because now everything's wrapped in a if is blank to something else.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Yep. And then you have to filter those zeros out if you don't want them to show up on a filter. So it's.
Most of the time, because I don't want to add complexity to the DAX formulas, I just let it show blank. And when people are kind of confused, I'm like, this is an educational idea that, in the world of the citizen data scientist or the non-IT data analyst, you're going to get blanks because of how you've filtered. It's okay. Blanks don't mean, something's wrong. Not every report is going to be pretty, especially if you're an analyst or a data scientist. You're going to get blanks. You're going to get NA. You're going to get divided by 0 errors, maybe.
I got my first infinity last week.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, something's wrong here.
Yeah, I think that's just the hardest part to getting across to business users is blank doesn't mean bad. It just means that there's no result to return.
Yeah. So I resist up until it's someone who's just clearly their adoption is going to drop off if they can't make it pretty, and then I'll replace it with space or 0 or something.
Okay.
So
cool.
Josh, I just put an email in or a link in the chat with the basically with an URL.
Sure.
I'll do the second one with not converted into hex or whatever it's doing when it converts it. So basically, it's you put you take basically the root of your app, your link, and you add the question mark to start your parameters with Chrome list for the full screen.
Sure.
And then for the filters, you just type filter equals. There's like a double. It's like location or location. So I don't know if it's. I forget if it's
table column.
That that would make sense. Okay, so it's table column.
Yeah.
So you just publish or replace what you need to, and I think you can pass in a handful of. I don't know if there's limits to how many you pass in, but
sure. What about in terms of showing the same report on multiple screens? How did you go about that? Are you using a single computer or multiple? I know you said you have multiple TVs on the floor.
Yeah, each bay has its own computer with its own login.
Okay.
So
we've got similar types of things where they needed to, for each TV, put a little computer behind it, so that that computer, and in our case, we wanted it. We may over engineered it a bit, but we wanted something that really couldn't be hacked with USB ports or anything. So it's really a dumb terminal that's showing a virtual desktop interface from the cloud. So really the thing isn't doing anything other than displaying. Unplugging it and plugging it back in doesn't even change it, because all it's doing is playing the virtual display somewhere else.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, we went down the path of actually writing an extension for Chrome, and it worked. It was so much work to get it to work, but premium per user is well worth its $10 a month.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was expecting it to be a lot higher than an additional $10 per month, to be honest. No, I've talked to our engineers about this as well in different solutions. So I'm just trying to see what everyone else is doing as well, because our engineers have come up with the idea that we could run a server in our data center that's connected to their environment and have it be multiple screens and display on different screens the report and pass in the URL and stuff. So just didn't know what everyone else
sounds
was
a
doing.
little bit more like what we did, because each VDI is a separate virtual desktop interface.
Yeah.
In our case.
Okay.
Though I do get the occasional question where they don't want to have that level of expense, or they just like to slap a little computer in for $200, and then it's, oh, well, did you know that with a few HTML you could set up a thing that rotates between different reports and this and that, and becomes a level of, oh, well, are they going to want to do that, or is it an IT support issue? So
yeah, I mean, this request came to us actually a couple of years ago before Premium per User even existed to refresh it and stuff. We were trying to find out, we do digital video and stuff on like display boards for companies and stuff. So they wanted to display a web page for Power BI and then announcements in SharePoint, and they just kind of rotated the page and stuff. And we're trying to wrap our head around how can we do that? How is it licensed? And it's kind of becoming more and more apparent as time has gone on in the stuff that they've added to Power BI. So,
and they keep changing the rules. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they say, "Oh, this can all be like embedded in a Teams page and no particular licensing, because now it's part of this whole Teams initiative they've got going on."
Right.
So, Shelley, do you work with Chris then?
Yeah, he's in our enterprise data analytics and insights group though. So I'm in services, so we're different parts of the company, but yeah, we both are in the Milwaukee office. Well, a year ago.
Right. Back when you were in offices.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you go to the Milwaukee Power BI user group?
Yeah, since it's been online, I don't, because it's like at night and I've already been on my computer all day. And I like going downtown actually when we would go to the Microsoft office.
Is that where they hold them?
Yeah.
That's where they used to.
They were switching off between, because they both, Seth and Mike, used to work for concurrency. So for a while they were switching off, and then I would never go to Brookfield because I'm like, I don't want to drive to Brookfield in rush hour, and I can just walk to the Microsoft office. So and then most recently, because they both don't work at concurrency anymore, they've had them always at the Microsoft office. So
that's good to know too. Part of what we're trying to keep gauging is people's change and virtual versus in person, like time of day, what seems to work well, resonate with other folks, that kind of thing. So
yeah. Well, and like at work with so many people overseas, we have a lot of meetings in the morning. So because this was in the afternoon, I thought, well, I haven't come on here in a while. Like this is probably the only second time I've been on with you guys, and so I thought, well, if I have time, I'll try it. But
then thanks so much for that, speaking up too.
I hope it helps.
Yeah. Glad to see so much interest from Heartland. So glad you guys were able to make it. I'm the guy that keeps bugging Drew to see if he'll do a user share, or his son will, or
yeah, his son's actually coming back as an intern again this summer. He starts in a month and that. Oh, it's almost April. 2 months almost. So
nice.
Good.
But yeah, the goal is to have some more presentations coming up from Heartland. So
that'd be great.
Awesome. Very good. Well, thanks for sticking around. I don't want to eat in the rest of your afternoon entirely, but I appreciate people simulating our in-person networking with the camera and turn it on a bit. It's good to see people's faces and get some sense of familiarity going. And hopefully you sign up for the next event, and we keep this virtual until we get ourselves back in person. But then you'll be encouraged to drive up here, Shelley.
If it's rush hour, I don't know. It's
Green Bay doesn't have one. It's okay.
It's a rush minute, right? No, I used to joke about country bumpkins. They live out in the country. They don't want to go anywhere. Like, I have some relatives like that. And it's like, now that I'm downtown all the time, I don't want to go anywhere. I want to walk. If I can't just walk,
That's like isn't that what turns into the big cities like New Yorkers? They don't have cars, they just walk everywhere. And if it's farther than that, they don't see it, right?
Yeah, and I'm totally spoiled by my 2-mile commute. I should be riding my bike or walking. It's like, nah, that'll take too long. I'm just gonna drive. 7-minute commute,
Yeah.
Where was the Green Bay group held in person prior to COVID?
We rotated it with the companies that were helping us the most. So like Wallow Atkinson was with is it Bay Natural Foods or
Nature's Way.
Nature's Way, and Whitfleet hosted us a couple times. Trying to think. I think we did one at Pro-Ampac in Wrightstown that was a little farther south. So it was formed based on what companies kind of would let us in. So part of that crosses our mind when we're like, well, sure, maybe people are comfortable getting back in person, but our company is comfortable letting 30 people into their building to use a room.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah.
We shall see.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you, guys.
All
right.
See you later.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.
Have a good one, guys.
Bye.